Hey everybody, this is Dr. Ormsby, and I'm sitting here today to answer your podcast questions with two of your TAs from the class from PET3361. These questions came from your very first session where you sort of put some things in our intro to the class questionnaire about what you want to know from this particular course. So we've picked a few out that were pretty common and that were very good questions, and we'll take some time to address those. Right now I'm with Katie and with Sam, and all of us have expertise in this in various areas and bring some different thoughts to the table. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a little time and go through your questions. Again, if you have any follow-up issues with these, be sure to email us and follow up, but we'll try to answer some of these because it's fun and it's interesting. I think this is a great way for you guys to learn a little bit about what we're doing and what are some hot topics in our field right now of sports and performance nutrition. So we'll just get right into it. We're going to start here with some very basic questions and sort of move through. Because you're in the supplement section, we're going to start with just a couple of supplement questions, and we'll go from there. The first question is from Rihanna, and this is dealing with some supplements in terms of weight loss, and it says, how effective are dietary supplements in regards to weight loss? And if effective, what are the ingredients in the supplements that make it successful? So we're talking about weight loss supplements for this question. I'll open up here and then we can get some comments in from both Katie and Sam, because all of us have worked with this in one way or another. I think the very first thing to recognize with weight loss supplements is that if it's too good to be true, it probably is. Right? There's really not a lot that stimulates weight loss effectively right now to any substantial effect. We've done this work in our lab. We've looked at weight loss supplements in a number of different scenarios. Now, I guess the first thing to talk about would be the ingredients that are thought to work for weight loss, and the first one that comes to mind for me is caffeine. Most of these weight loss supplements that are at your GNC or your nutrition sort of supplement stores will contain caffeine as a dose in there. So number one, are you sensitive to caffeine? Do you have any heart issues? Are there anything that you should know about before taking caffeine? And there are plenty of people who are quite sensitive. Also, do you care about your sleep? And if you do, and you should, what time of day are you trying to take this stuff? Because the caffeine itself can keep you awake, of course, late at night, depending on how sensitive you are to it. And the dose matters. If you have a dose that's less than probably 3 milligrams per kilogram of body weight, it's unlikely to do much unless you're super sensitive to it. So you need to look at the bottle. I mean, sometimes I see 50 milligrams or 35 milligrams in the dose. That's not going to do anything in terms of weight loss for sure. It may stimulate your mind slightly, but that's really not going to do stuff for weight loss, which is this goal. Do you guys have any other thoughts on that caffeine?
Also, when you typically label a thermogenic aid, which is essentially the weight loss type, a new one I've seen is red ketones. And if you just look on the back of the label, it just has caffeine in it. So they're essentially saying that it's the red ketones, whatever that may be, and then it's actually the caffeine. And then you also have to take in mind if you're going to eat anything with caffeine, it usually diminishes the effects. Like taking a carbohydrate with caffeine is usually going to decrease the stimulation. You have to also consider if you like that feeling of shaking and being super stimulated, because some people don't like that kind of jittery feeling as well. Katie?
Yeah, I would just say, is it simply a supplement, or is it also working as some sort of pre-workout? Is this going to be taken sort of in close proximity to a subsequent exercise bout, and maybe then we're sort of substantiating weight loss, or are you just sort of taking it?
The thing with caffeine is, like, I guess if we go to a mechanism, the interesting part is it may mobilize fat. It actually can do that through part of its mechanism. But if you take caffeine and don't work out, you'll just mobilize from your fat tissue into your blood, and then it'll just re-esterify and be stored again. So you need to be timing that with exercise to have any real effective benefit
supplement.
from it. Yeah, of that supplement. And that's true for a lot of supplements. Like, you still can't get away with not exercising. Exercise is the key, and adding these things might help slightly, but if you're not exercising, it's not doing anything. We just published a study in the Journal of the International Society of Sports Nutrition with one of my grad students, and you guys remember Shweta Rawal. Her work looked at these multi-ingredient dietary supplements, including caffeine, something called conjugated linoleic acid, and green tea extract. And we gave this pill for 8 weeks to overweight and obese women, and they were not to change their exercise patterns, and their exercise was very low to begin with, less than 2 days a week of less than 30 minutes. And they did no good. That pill did nothing, not a thing. It didn't do anything. In fact, in some cases, it worked in the opposite way, where they thought that taking the pill was doing something in terms of increasing their metabolism. And so then they compensated, it seemed, with their meals and said, oh, I guess I'm burning more calories doing nothing, which is possible. So then I'll eat more at these meals, or we'll have an extra serving of something. And it totally backfired. There was no benefit to the pill. Now, we think if we added exercise in, perhaps that would have had a different result, but we didn't do it in that study. So again, the question of dietary supplements, are they effective? Not really in terms of weight loss. They may spark your metabolism. They may help you mobilize fat, particularly if you're looking at green tea extract, particularly something called EGCG, in a high enough dose. So you'd have to drink like 12 cups of green tea a day or take a pill for it. And the caffeine dose needs to be pretty substantial, looking at roughly, I'd say 150 to 350 milligrams in a serving for an average sized person. If you're smaller, that would be probably less. If you're bigger, that would be more. But you have to play that against your risks, health issues, any background. In my opinion, go work hard and sweat it out. It's probably the best effect. Monitor your eating and your whole food intake, and what are you doing on a day-to-day and a habit base. And then if all those things kind of line up, then you might consider something like this. But most times it's going to be ineffective at best. Anything to add to that?
I guess also looking at boosting metabolism, how much is it actually increasing? They might say that it does, but if it's not a significant amount, then what's the point?
Yeah, most of the studies show about 100 to 150, maybe 200 calorie increase from taking these supplements. From the work we've done, we've shown that. It's okay, but if you do that over time, maybe it works, but you can so easily make up 100 calories. It's insane. Like one piece of bread or one piece of anything will add that back.
And how many calories is the actual supplement itself?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Do they come with anything? So good points. I think the outcome there is be skeptical if you're looking into taking those. Okay, so kind of along the same lines, there are a lot of questions in terms of supplements on the market, and one question that came from you guys was, why are so many supplements on the market, and why are they not FDA regulated, and which ones are considered the healthiest? And we'll add some sort of comments on this. Right now you guys are studying this, so you've probably seen the answers in the lecture notes, but the first thing to sort of realize is that they actually are all regulated. It's just regulated differently from food. So every single one that's on the market is under FDA and Federal Trade Commission regulations. However, the difference is they get to market before they're approved, rather than drugs which are approved before they go to market. So that's the major difference. They can be pulled, they are pulled from the market. Trouble is, there's just not enough oversight, enough eyes, enough people to look at every single product. So everything is regulated, and there are quite a few checks and balances. And a lot of times companies these days are being forced to take the high road, which is excellent, and take the pharmaceutical medical grade approach to their supplement manufacturing. I mean, I know I work and consult with a number of these companies that I feel do a good job in terms of labeling and having what they say is in their product actually in their product. But they are regulated, so that's kind of number one. Anything from you guys?
Yeah, when I was with Dymatize, they were preparing FDA folders for all their supplements, and what we did was we took pictures of all the supplements for stability purposes with checking for expiration dates, and then also the ingredients of each as well. And I think one thing to look out for is definitely a proprietary blend, because with that, you don't have to list the full amounts of the ingredient. So it could say there's caffeine in there, but you don't know how much you're getting. So there might be either not enough where you don't get the stimulation, or there might be a crazy high amount where you would start to feel pretty, you could have some health issues. And then what's also interesting to me, I think, is just these companies like Hydroxycut that was taken off the market probably like 10 years ago because people were having liver issues and heart attacks, and now they're back on the market and they just reformulated their product, and it seems pretty easy for them just to be able to rehash their stuff and then put it right back on the market.
Yeah, you'll see labels like new and improved legal formulation, and then your question is, well, why was it illegal before? Even like, I guess the news was spread all over last year with something called DMAA, or dimethylamine. That was a supplement, or an ingredient in supplements that was linked to many issues, including a couple of deaths from military personnel and those types of people. Very unfortunate cases. Just about 3 weeks ago, I was in one of these types of stores selling supplements, and I looked at a few of the labels, and there were still products on the shelf with DMA in the product listed on the label. So I was shocked to see that. So you still need to be careful. Does that mean they're not regulated? No, they were told to take them off. It means the store owner didn't do their job in removing them from the shelves. So there's multiple people at fault in those types of cases. But there are still supplements that do work, do have a background, are useful to consider, provided you have some other common things in place, like your exercise and your normal food intake is on track. In fact, taking the supplement is a very quick way to improve some performances, better in some cases than training. We know we can get a small increase in some activities from taking supplements. Now, there are probably few of them. Now, from your experience with Katie and Sam, which ones do you know of that are actually useful? To start with one.
Sure. I think the biggest one that people also have a question about is creatine. And just from a convenience standpoint, to start off, it takes about 2.5 pounds of meat to have 5 grams of creatine, which is usually the common serving size, and that's just one little scoop of creatine powder, and it's super cheap to buy a pretty big container. So from a convenience standard, instead of eating all that food before you go work out, you can just have a scoop before or after you work out, which is definitely easier. But it's been shown, at least in the exercise world, to help with explosive power and sprints, and also with fluid retention on hot days. And now it's even being used in the clinical world because it's been shown to help with cognition, especially during sleep deprivation. So now they're seeing if it works with Alzheimer's patients, MS, and muscular dystrophy, and things like that. So being able to take a sports supplement and applying it to clinical and health applications is pretty interesting, I think.
Yeah. Anything on creatine?
I mean, I would say it's definitely one that's based in the literature. Yeah. But again, asking me this is sort of funny because obviously, yes, it works, but it also depends on sort of like what your athletic background is, and sort of less scientifically the culture. I was a runner, and in our minds, a supplement was like, oh, chocolate milk as a recovery beverage, even though that's not technically a supplement.
Right.
So I would say I'm definitely not as well versed, but it's something a little bit more foreign to my personal.
That's a good point. I think that different sports definitely have different opinions on it, and gender too. I mean, I know just from working with a lot of athletes that a lot of women shy away from it more than men, although there are certain strategies to take it for men and for women. Eventually it's going to be beneficial for both genders, but you can sort of dose it differently. For example, if a guy is trying to gain weight, you might do the loading phase and work through that. And if a woman, the same thing, if she's trying to gain weight for something, you would do the same dosing pattern. But if either of them are trying to maintain muscle mass while losing weight, you might dose at a smaller intake, 3 to 5 milligrams. You just do it for an extended period of time. And then you're less likely to have the number one sort of side effect from this, which is weight gain. And that's oftentimes what people are looking for, but you can avoid it with smaller dosing, and you'll still saturate the cell eventually. So creatine's really cool. This summer we saw the International Society of Sports Nutrition had a lecture by a guy named Dr. Mark Tarnopolsky, and he went through the clinical side that Sam was talking about. It was amazing. He was showing benefits that beat the normal standard prednisone treatment in these muscular dystrophy patients time and time again. Creatine, which we naturally produce and is in some of the foods we eat, as opposed to prednisone, which is a huge drug, a steroid that actually has quite a few side effects. And he was just saying how interesting it was that a lot of the families of these patients would say, oh, no, not creatine, give me the prednisone, even though the side effects were documented. And then when he did it in his medical practice and in his research line, showing no side effects and similar or better outcomes from creatine use, it shocked everybody. And it's just a way of thinking. But eventually I think people will take it. I've got both of my parents taking it. I've got, I think it's beneficial for cognitive states. I think the Alzheimer's issues are interesting, and for sports can be very useful with creatine. Now, always consider the source. You have to make sure it's sort of third-party documented, that it's clean and pure. Creatine and monohydrate's really the one that you want to go for. There are other versions which are more expensive and try to make it sound fancy, but you don't need those, and they're really no use to them. They're no better than the creatine monohydrate, at least now in our understanding of it. Yeah. So another thing?
Yeah, I think a newer one, which is what my thesis is on, is nitrate, dietary nitrate supplementation. And what's interesting about it is that, kind of unlike creatine, it seems to be beneficial across the board in both endurance and power, short and long-term duration exercises. And what we did in the lab is we tried it with CrossFit, which is first of its kind with, there's only one other study that I've seen actually with CrossFit, and they use actually a dimetized product. So we showed that it improved this CrossFit workout, which was 30 clean and jerks for time, by 30 seconds compared to the placebo, which was only about 10-second improvement. So that magnitude is a pretty big change. And it's also super easy to get. The equivalent that you need is about 2 beets. The beetroot is usually the highest food that you see it in. So it's super accessible, and there are no side effects, and it shows to extend the time to exhaustion during maximal intensity exercise, and then lower the cost of energy production during submax exercise.
Yep, definitely an up-and-comer. Lots of data on that in the actual scientific literature. Now, this is different from products like NO Explode, so keep that in mind. We're actually talking about the dietary nitrate itself. Those particular products have that on the label because it sounds cool, like Explode or whatever, but it doesn't. That's a different product. Those are usually getting arginine or citrulline, which are maybe doing something, but likely not, especially if you're healthy. But the nitrate itself from beetroot is an interesting one, and also from pomegranate is another source which is becoming more popular. So those are two, and the other one we already spoke about before was caffeine, and those are some of the ones that are pretty common. Another one would be beta-alanine, has a lot of backing to it in terms of buffering hydrogen ions and making you feel perhaps less of that acute pain that happens if you're doing an intense workout, intense sprint perhaps, or maybe multiple squats or something where you have that burn coming on, which we typically call lactic acid, but it's really these dissociated hydrogen ions that cause that pain because it changes the pH. Beta-alanine helps in that sense. So those are the ones there. We talked about creatine, nitrate, caffeine, and beta-alanine. So those are the ones that are kind of the big hitters there, like you're seeing in some of the class notes. All right, cool. So I think we've kind of hammered that question out a little bit. We're going to switch gears a little bit because some of you guys had a recurring question, which was about when to do cardio and if you should eat or not before doing it. And so the question actually was, does fasted cardio or fasted workout provide better results as far as fat burning goes and maximizing gains? And this is from Taylor. So that's it. Should we work out fasted? Should we work out in a fasted state or a fed state? I have a pretty clear opinion on this. I'm gonna let you guys start and tell me what you think.
I think the first way to approach this question is with another question, which is, what is your goal here? Are you working out to increase your lean mass, to get big, or are you working out basically for fat loss? Are you trying to lose weight? And I think that's really going to put you into the two different categories. If you are trying to gain mass, it seems like exercise in the fed state is going to maximize that. You're going to be able to be in a more positive, especially if you're feeding with protein, a more positive nitrogen balance and potentially increase muscle protein synthesis. But then again, if you are trying to lose weight, it seems that fasted exercise will allow us to use fat as a major substrate. But again, I guess a caveat here is, are you exercising for improved performance though too? Because if you're fasted, you'll probably have better results as far as weight loss, but your bout of exercise might not be as high quality.
You're right. Yeah, I get this question a lot. I'm sure you guys do too. But the goal is always confusing. It's like, are you trying to change your body comp, and that's it? Or are you trying to perform the best that you can? Are you trying to be fast or strong? Or are you trying just to lean out? Now, I've worked with physique athletes where we sort of manipulate this on purpose because the entire goal is physique.
Yeah.
Then I work with endurance athletes or even like moderate short distance athletes, like 5, 10K type people.
Or sprint triathlon.
Sprint triathlon kind of scenarios. And that's a different beast. Like, if you're going really hard, you should probably eat something. And time it right, because some people get like GI upset or something if you eat too soon and that kind of stuff. I'll give it to Sam here for a second to kind of follow up on Katie's comments.
And I just think it just goes also your personal opinion. Like, if I'm doing more resistance training, I like to go fasted just because if I take a pre-workout, I feel it more. So that's just more of a mental thing. Whereas if I'm going to run or I'm a rower, so if I row, I like to eat before because I know that I'm going to do an endurance type thing. So maybe that's just my personal mental thing, how I view it. But I think it comes down to personal opinion and also your goals as well as you guys have been saying.
And what's not going to make you sick.
Yeah, that too,
Which in my case is a strawberry Pop-Tart. But I don't think you'll find that in recommendations.
That's right. Yeah, so I think those are good points for fed or fasted. Now, just recently, probably within the last month, there was a review article on fed versus fasted exercise and specifically weight and body composition. That was put out by a guy with the last name of Schoenfeld. And Schoenfeld published this in the journal, the ISSN, just recently. And what his study went through was in women. They tested one group who were, I think it was 4 weeks long. They had fasted workouts every day. In the other group, they had fed workouts every day. Same amount of food provided to both of them. They just did it fasted or not. The one group had basically a carbohydrate protein shake before exercise, and then the other group had it right after. And so one was fed, one was not. And they did that over the course of 4 weeks, which is arguably not that long, so maybe you need more time. They saw zero difference in any outcomes in terms of fat loss and body composition. So in that case, the conclusion was that there is no difference. Do what you like. What do you prefer? How do you want to feel? Which is definitely a way to look at it. In my opinion, I like to look at some of the data out of the Australian Institute of Sport, which is from Louise Burke and John Hawley and some of these big names in sports nutrition. And they try to manipulate how you eat over the course of a day. And if you're a pretty serious athlete, you're probably doing at least real single workouts very hard, or maybe doubles or even triple workouts in a day. And a lot of athletes do that too if you're at a competitive level. And they would time it so that you might have a workout that's fasted in order to try to ramp up the ability for your fat oxidizing enzymes to work. And they've shown that if you do it in a fasted way, you increase the ability to mobilize, so lipolysis, and oxidize fat, which is really cool. So they were able to show that. Trouble was, if they only did that, when those athletes switched to trying to go extremely fast, as opposed to just a moderate pace, maybe a tempo kind of pace, they couldn't do it. They couldn't switch over and actually use glucose like they needed to for the very hard workout. So what they've started to do now is use both models, and where they'll do a morning exercise that's in a fasted state, then they'll eat afterwards, they'll eat lunch, and then they'll do an afternoon workout fed that's really hard. And so they just manipulate it. So the morning workout is sort of the moderate pace, slower workout to get at the fat oxidation and work that system. And then they work in the afternoon to get the carbohydrate system working to an advantage. That's called metabolic flexibility. And that's really what the point is. What fuel do you need at what time? And in my opinion, it's a good idea to try to work all of these things into your training. Try some in a fasted state, try some in a very fed state, and just see how you feel and then how your body responds to it. I think a lot of times you'll see recommendations from maybe some people who shouldn't be giving recommendations, but to always do it fasted. And typically that's from a body comp perspective. Will you use fat? Sure, but the argument is you probably won't be able to go as hard as you could have if you ate, right? And then on the other side, if you eat beforehand, the argument is you could probably go harder and therefore have a better, more high quality workout than if you didn't do it. All right, so I think the literature, the research will tell you that you can burn more fat if you're working out fasted during the bout, but if you eat and go and have a harder workout, perhaps you increase your ability to burn fat beyond the bout of exercise.
Sure.
And so I think that it's really a good idea to sort of use both of these, you see how you feel, and then the main point's what Katie said. What's your goal?
Yeah.
Is your goal body comp? Is your goal to be fast? Figure that bit out, and I think that you have a real clear path on what to do.
I have one more thing to add. I think there is an element of common sense here, though, too. Like, we say fasted, but that doesn't mean you should be severely dehydrated and hungover and it's 95 degrees outside and
Very good
you're
point.
trying to go run. So fasted, but in a good physiological state.
Yeah, right. Don't do the spring break's over, but I hope you didn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so certainly hydration's a different status, and that actually reminds me that if you happen to be an endurance athlete or even a weight training athlete and you like being fasted, but if you're doing a prolonged exercise bout, you can work other things into the system. Like, you can sort of be fasted but still take aminos or branch chains where it's not adding calories, but you might still stimulate muscle protein synthesis or guard against excessive muscle breakdown by simply adding in something like amino acids to that workout or branch chain specifically. So there are some ways to structure it, but again, there's never a one-size-fits-all answer to sports nutrition,
yeah.
ever. If somebody tells you this one thing works for everybody, no matter if you're big, small, lean, not lean, fast or slow, they're wrong. It's got to be individualized. You've got to pay attention to what if you don't like certain foods? Then clearly it doesn't work. What if you've got an allergy? Then clearly not one thing will work for everybody. So common sense, like Katie said. I think we got to a bunch of cool questions today. We had a nice conversation. Hopefully you guys can give us some feedback if you like this sort of a style for answering your questions, because it's fun for us to do. And I really think you'll get some practical, real life, up-to-date information by listening to these things. This is all fair game for exams, so make sure you have this stuff in your notes and take some notes as you're listening to it, because you might see these questions again. Okay, thanks. That's the end of this podcast. We will talk to you guys later.